Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in on this week's episode. We're going to talk about a couple things. First and foremost, we're going to talk about Canadian food prices being put on hold. Good luck with that, Mr. Trudeau. A couple other things, Bitcoin mining, what that's going to look like over the next couple of months, and will people survive? I don't know. But first and foremost, before we get into the advertising, let me just run through that because you should get a Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. Go to bitbox.swiss/Bitcoin Made Simple. Use the promo code Bitcoin Made Simple and get 5% off your order. Get your coins off the exchange because those are imploding left and right. And I'd highly recommend you get a Bitbox because it's the easiest, simplest to use. So easy, even a caveman can use it. That caveman being me. So you should get one. Also, shout out to Movies Plus. Go to mymoviesplus.com. Use the promo code Corey. Become one of the millions of people that have used it. Hashtag not really. There's not really a million people that have used it, but it humbles me. Tons of you guys have used it. So CORY, and you can get 1 year for $24. First and foremost, that's like the third time I've said that. So let's see how many times I can say first and foremost in one podcast. But if you're watching this, if you're one of the video viewers of the podcast, you'll notice I have a different setup today. And I'm in my basement. I'll explain why. So first and foremost, wow, I actually did it a fourth time. I need to stop that. That is ridiculous. It's not even like a thing I say. Like, I don't say it all the time. I have no idea where that came from. It reminds me of this time, my friend, first and foremost, reminds me of this time that my two best friends, still my best friends, but, through high school, college, all that stuff, are twins. What would the one brother, like, if you know twins, if you've been around twins, there's usually, like, it seems there's the dynamic in every twin relationship. And the one brother was like, I remember them picking me up and we were driving somewhere, and he was telling me like a story and going on, and he kept saying like something along the lines of first and foremost, or like he's, like, and then obviously, or something like that. I can't remember what it was. It's going to drive me nuts. But like the other brother was like, would you stop saying that? Like, it's just driving him crazy. So it made me think of that. So the basement situation, the reason I'm in my basement is because I did the main reason initially was I started doing a football podcast, just for fun. I wanted to put some more content for Movies Plus, so that's a main reason that's happening, because we live stream it to Movies Plus at the conclusion of Sunday Night Football. So if you're a American football fan, you can check it out at mymoviesplus.com. But so I had to do that in the basement. I was like, oh, there's like a better aesthetic here because you can see like, oh, it's got like the basketball hoop thing, and got a football behind us here. The Stanley Cups all there. So more like a sports thing. I still been here a year and a half and I don't have it fully decorated, and I'm embarrassed and ashamed. But it's going to get man caved out eventually. I have all my stuff. I have some of it up. But I also don't want to, I'm not a huge overly like clutter the walls type person. I'll probably put some movie posters up, to be honest, because we've got our like movie screen right there and everything like that. So yeah, that is why I'm in the basement. But then also, occasionally I do podcasts in the evening, and this not being one of them. But when I do, I feel like I always have to be a little more subdued because my office is upstairs and children are sleeping all over the place. So I can get a little more animated down here, and not have to, if it's in the evening. So with all that being said, I doubt. I mean, who knows? It could be a week from now, and I'll be just back at my desk recording it that way. But yeah, that's why I am down here. And yeah, I'm gonna try to do a little bit more of that I'm going to do the football stuff. I'm going on a football show next week. I did a Twitter space over the week talking about football because the Steelers lost their first game and I needed a group therapy session. But, I think it's important for Bitcoiners to remember that life is not all just Bitcoin. We get wrapped up into that really easily. And right now is the easy time to remember that because, mind you, the bull market will come back, and when it does, the euphoria, the mania, and all the people will be back in, and they want to talk about Bitcoin. That's all they want to talk about, and just don't get yourself lost in it. That's my recommendation. So now on to the Bitcoin topics. In particular, have you seen that Justin Trudeau came out and said that if they don't start controlling prices and stop inflating their prices at the grocery stores, then they're going to, if they don't stop inflating their prices at the grocery store, they are going to look at imposing some price controls. Where have you heard that before? Every serious Bitcoiner that knows what they're talking about has been warning of things like this for a while. Also, if you study history, you'll see the Weimar Republic and how that fell apart. And guess what? It's putting in price controls is the fast track to getting people showing up with wheelbarrows full of cash to buy a loaf of bread. If you haven't seen it before, I apologize. I'm like wiping my nose, but I don't have Kleenex down here, and apparently being in the basement made my nose run. If you haven't seen there's a really good video. If I can find it, I'll put it in the link down below. But it shows the effects of the Weimar Republic, which for those of you that don't know, and most of you probably do because you're Bitcoiners, but I'm always keeping in my mind that there might be new people here listening. The Weimar Republic is Germany pre-World War II, post-World War I, and they had massive debts to pay because of reparations that were imposed on them for the damage they caused in World War I. Okay, so it wasn't. Think about a country owing massive debts. Sound familiar? Then they couldn't pay the debts, so they were printing their own money to pay the debt. Sound familiar? And then things ran out of control. And it quickly, people were burning piles of cash because it was cheaper, more cost effective to burn the cash than it was to buy coal to burn and heat their house. And then people start showing up. There's pictures of literally like a woman with a wheelbarrow full of cash going to the grocery store, hoping to be able to pay for something. We always think it can't happen to us, but it's knocking pretty close on our doors. And like last week I was talking about with how insane the inflation really is. Let me look up. There was a tweet that somebody put out, oot in a boot. Since we're talking about Canada, I'll just throw that oot in a boot out there. The tweet was, I reposted it. So here, I said, thank God for Bitcoin giving us a chance to escape this inflationary hell someday. Mitch Klee, which I don't know who Mitch is. Bitcoin and energy analyst. Okay. So Mitch posted, said U.S. cost of living since 2020. So since 2020, U.S. cost of living, shelter is up 17%, apparel is up 13%. Mind you, this is only with, transitory couple percent inflation. Fuel oil is up 68%. Gasoline is up 74%. New cars are up 22%. Electricity is up 24%. U.S. wages are up 15%. Used cars up 33%. Medical care, not bad, only up 4%. Gas utilities up 35%. Actual rents are up 24%. Food at home is up 20%. Transportation up 29%, and actual home prices up 40%. So even if that's not the most accurate information in the world, that's insane. Nuts. Like, that is a nuts proposal to put us in that situation. And like, I got to be honest, like how many, I mean, I've mentioned it before, but like I've had friends where they're like, I make good money and I'm just getting by. And I feel bad for all the people. I mean, credit card debt's like at an all-time high. New mortgages are at an all-time low, or at least not all-time low, but like a low for the last 20 plus years. People aren't interested in buying houses, and it's just, we're seeing the consequences of all the money printing and the years and years of quantitative easing coming to a head. And since you're a Bitcoiner, you should probably get a BitBox02 hardware wallet because you know that all of this is going to go down. So the quantitative easing, which this is years ago at this point, on the podcast when I talked about it, probably like 100 episodes ago, that I talked about how I didn't even know what quantitative easing was. It was actually my interview with Preston Pish. I remember saying that. It was like, I didn't know what quantitative easing was. I was cutting the grass listening to his podcast, and he mentioned it, and I'm like, wait a minute. I like stop and like Google like quantitative easing. Like, oh my God. Because we all know, like, oh, they printed money during the financial crisis, the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis of 2008. We all knew that they printed money, and that was like appalling. And it's only a one-time thing to bail them out. Too big to fail. Blah blah blah. And then they just kept doing it via quantitative easing. So what we've seen, I feel like it's too late with the Fed raising rates, and basically you have a car going full speed down a steep hill in San Francisco, and you're just pulling the e-brake hoping that it's going to do something. And so I feel like that's what Powell and the Fed is doing. But I feel like it's too little too late. But then again, I know my buddy Phil would argue that this is by design because they're trying to crash the euro dollar, and there's all kinds of theories behind that. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. No way to know for sure. But you look at what's happening and you realize these things are accelerating. The reason Bitcoin is down is most likely because liquidity has been pulled out of the system. There aren't as many dollars. They're trying to contract the dollar. That's plain and simple, most likely why Bitcoin has gone down. I'm starting to read, I think TXMC, if you guys follow him, he floated this. He was the first person I saw floated, so I don't know. I'm like, if he was the first one, great. If not, he's just the first place I saw it, but he gets the credit for it now. Talking about how the 4-year cycles for Bitcoin might not be halving related, but more liquidity related. And if you look at the price history, when there were massive amounts of liquidity injected into the economy, Bitcoin went up. Last time was COVID in 2020. So lots of liquidity gets pumped into the system. Simultaneously happens with the halving, and the price just runs. And we all know, we know Bitcoin is worth, millions of dollars. One Bitcoin should be worth millions and millions of dollars. How long is it going to take us to get there? I don't know. But on this price discovery journey that we're on, and by the way, none of this is financial advice. This is just me riffing. If you ever take this as financial advice, God help you. So the liquidity has been drained from the pool. That's where I'm going with this. It's getting drained out, and it's getting suffocated. And basically, I remember hearing certain people talk about it and kind of agreeing, like, yeah, you're going to see. So all these things are going to break. And hopefully the U.S. doesn't break for people that live in the U.S., but everything else will break first. And so we saw it with like smaller countries. We saw it with, the Argentinas of the world that are going through hyperinflation. And, Cyprus had a hyperinflation event, and I think Chile and many other places. And honestly, it'll start happening in, Europe before. The U.S. will be the last place that it hits. And so we see Canada, which, don't get excited, Canadians. I'm not saying you're the number 2 world power. But it's a big country, obviously, and right next door to America. And as my Canadian hockey teammates so lovingly always called it, the 51st state of the United States of America. When they talk trash about, the U.S., I would say, look, out of all 51 states in our country, yours is definitely the cleanest, and the most polite. But yeah, so it's hitting close to home. How long does it mean before that hyperinflation actually starts to happen in Canada? I mean, who knows? But the signs are there. The fissures are starting to show. When you have the prime minister coming out talking about enforcing price controls, yikes, that does not sound good. So I would be avoiding that situation like the plague, and trying to get my money into the hardest asset possible, which we all know is Bitcoin. Next, I want to talk about, I could riff on that for a little bit longer, but I feel like I just beat a dead horse. But frankly, it just goes to show you, you think it can't happen here, can't happen to you, and by golly, it can, and it will, if they don't fix this system. The only way to fix it is a hard money system. Are they going to do that? Probably not. Does Powell want to strengthen the U.S. dollar? Yeah. But how long is it going to be? And by the way, so this ties in, actually. This is perfect tie-in. Great radio segue to the Bitcoin mining, because things are breaking by the Fed raising rates, and something has to give soon. And they'll probably, maybe, let's say within the next 6 months, ease up on, start quantitative easing again, and more liquidity starts rushing out in the next 6 to 12 months into the system. Guess what happens in the next 6 to 12 months? The Bitcoin halving. So I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but let's just say the Bitcoin halving, which is probably going to happen in April, the Bitcoin halving takes place, and liquidity, the spigot gets turned back on, the dollar spigot, and the dollars start just flowing in, which would be very detrimental to the prices and inflation in the long term. But in the short term, where do you think that money is going to go? It's going to make risk-on assets go crazy, and hold on to your butts. Because if we're hanging out in like 30 to 40K range, and then all that stuff happens, it's gonna be a wild ride. But be prepared for anything. And that kind of goes with my thoughts on the mining. So as you guys know, I'm working on getting some mining situations set up. And really, it's like the only way the best way to be a miner is to be on the hunt for the cheapest energy possible. So that's what I've been spending a good amount of my time doing, and starting to lock this stuff up, and it's exciting. It's like getting really good energy prices where like your break even is so low, like such a low Bitcoin price. You're like, oh, that's great. Because in your mind, you're like, that's never going to happen. But realistically, if that happens, I'm not going to really reveal my secrets because it's proprietary, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't do me any benefit to give the actual rates out but as the price tumbles, and I promise you, there's the energy we'll be using, and I'm sure Hodl Tarantula, if you guys know him, he does a ton of Bitcoin mining. A lot of the Bitcoin miners, the energy that they are using is definitely cheaper than 99% of the people out there that are mining. So how long can those companies, especially the big public ones, how long? I don't know their electricity rate. I don't know what it costs for them to produce a Bitcoin via mining, but I think they're like underwater, and they really need the price to go up. So walk through the scenario with me. This is why I think investing in mining is the best option. And I'm not talking like investing in stocks of mining. I'm saying actually mining, getting out there, getting your hands dirty, finding cheap energy, is because as the price tumbles, let's just say we have a moment where the price collapses down to $5,000. So maybe you're break even at $5,000 a Bitcoin, and you're like, whoa, then we'd start begin to get a little nervous. Or you got to think about it. Like, I don't know. I'm just speculating, so I'm not even going to say names of my mining companies that are publicly traded. Let's say like a publicly traded mining company is currently underwater and losing money on a monthly basis. Desperately needs the price of Bitcoin to go up. Price of Bitcoin crashes. Let's say they're paying, I don't know, typical residential electric rate, probably 10 to 15 cents. I'm not saying that's what they're paying, but let's say you get to the break-even point of 10 to 15 cents, which you're probably close to now, actually. Guess what those home miners that are mining on the residential, unless they're sitting pretty, they're going to probably start to unplug. Hash rate goes down. Then the price plummets a little more, and you get into, I don't know, let's just say they're getting it at 6, 7, 8 cents per kilowatt is their energy rate, and they start hitting their break-even points. This companies would go bust. I don't know any of their information. I'm just saying that if you're negative money now and the price of Bitcoin plummets and goes below your break even on mining for Bitcoin, then your losses are going up. You have no way out, and you might just have to shut off for like a year, or whatever, or you might be done forever. Who knows? When that happens, the hash rate will really plummet, and people like me and other people that are mining Bitcoin at a reasonable, good price, the miners of last resort, are all of a sudden going to be getting like just crushed with Bitcoin because they're going to give like probably back of my smooth brain napkin math, probably see, let's see, price crashes to $5,000. You probably see like 5-6 fold increase in how many Bitcoin you're mining a month, and you'll be more profitable just if you're looking at U.S. dollars terms. But I like in in a way, I'd actually be like rooting for that. I'd be like, let's bring it down. Like, because if you have the cheap energy, you know that you are the miner of last resort. And it's the best place to be sitting in this current financial environment, because everything else can go to hell. The price of Bitcoin could actually go to hell, and you'll be doing better. And we all know eventually Bitcoin would rebound and Bitcoin would keep going, and TikTok next block. So that's where I think that's where my head's at, and I hope a lot of your heads are that way. And if you guys ever want to just reach out, DM me or whatever, talk about Bitcoin mining. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm new-ish in this, but it's definitely like the most exciting thing that I've been a part of in a while, professionally. So, and I mean, even like, it's not the most exciting thing I've been a part of in a while personally, but it's something that actually does good for my soul on a personal level, and it happens to be business related. So anyways, get yourself a BitBox02 hardware wallet from bitbox.swift/Bitcoin Made Simple. Use promo code Bitcoin Made Simple to get 5% off, and I will talk to you guys next week.